Well, g'day everybody. It's Benjamin Morgan, Chief Executive of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Australia. And today a video from my desk at home giving an update as to the situation that is unfolding with Toowoomba Airport in Queensland. Now, over the last couple of days, I've been involved in putting together some media in relation to the emergency landing that took place at Bankstown Airport. That's a phenomenal situation, but in the course of all of that public media, we've been asked some questions in relation to what is happening at Toowoomba and if AOPA Australia is going to be lending a hand there. So I thought it would be a great opportunity today off the back of all of that to start this conversation and give everyone a bit of an update as to what is happening, what has unfolded to date. There was a council meeting that was actually held today and to discuss a little bit around what's happened in the council meeting and what's likely to happen now over the next 12 months to 2 years. Okay. So let's kick into things, I guess, from a broad perspective. We've got a wonderful airfield in Queensland called Toowoomba Airport. It's been there probably since the 1930s and for many decades has been a hub of general aviation activity that has really been quite successful. You've got a broad mix of aircraft maintenance, flight schools, charter companies, warbird adventure flight operators. It's a really diverse general aviation economy at that airport location. With over 140 or 150 people being employed on the airfield, all contributing to aviation. I think it's fair to say that it wouldn't matter what part of the eastern seaboard of Australia you go to in general aviation, there's a broad recognition that Toowoomba is an incredibly valuable airfield, not just in terms of its location on the coast amongst all the other airports, but as being part of our GA economy. It's very difficult to find locations across Australia where airports are thriving, and it's fair to say that Toowoomba Airport is thriving and should continue to thrive with a strong working partnership with the council who operate the airfield. Now, the airfield was originally a Commonwealth Airport site and was transferred into council ownership and control during the airport privatisation processes under the ALOP, and since then has been run by the Toowoomba Council and has been run relatively successfully. It'd be also fair to say that Toowoomba Airport and the aviation precinct is amongst one of the most affordable precincts in the nation. And of course, that's vital to keeping general aviation services running. We all know that right across general aviation, the margins in our businesses are very tight. And so being able to afford to keep the doors open, keep people employed, keep the apprentices running, and keep those services out to community, it's vital in having a strong working partnership where the businesses can afford to be based. Now, not that long ago, a private family, the Wagner family, decided to open up an airport at Wellcamp, and that airport is a distance from Toowoomba, but a decision was made by a private family to open up their own airport. And if you look back at all of the information that has been published around the Wagner Wellcamp Airport, it's clear that the intention of that airport is to become a regional, domestic and international freight and distribution airport, along with generating passenger traffic as the region expands. And of course, that airport has been purpose-built for that function. And I've been very fortunate to go out on site and visit the Wellcamp Airport and take tours. It's an impressive facility, and it's clear that as the region grows, this is going to become a very busy airport for jet, airliner and jet freight traffic. I believe there's also plans for a rail link which will bring with it freight modal distribution. And so it will become a very valuable part of our aviation infrastructure as well. But it's going to be operating at a very high end of the aviation spectrum. And the reason I discussed this at the outset of this conversation is that there is a conversation taking place at the moment with the council who are operating Toowoomba Airfield as to whether, if the airfield should be closed, and whether the general aviation businesses can simply be moved across to Wellcamp. Now, those of us that are in aviation working within this industry, we have a clear understanding that that's just not possible. To intermix the general aviation business activity, private aircraft activity onto the Wellcamp site, you are eventually going to be in a situation where there's going to be some pretty bold incompatibilities. And so the idea of moving general aviation away from its multi-decade foundation and establishment at Toowoomba across to Wellcamp would not only be extremely short-sighted, but it would likely end up resulting in the vast devastation of general aviation services for that region. And let's also be broad and frank. General aviation plays a very important role, not just for our aviation economy, but it plays an important role for communities right across this country. It's a gateway that enables people to move about. It's a gateway that enables emergency services to function. It's a gateway in which it enables aeromedical services to reach into communities and around the country. They are vital pieces of community infrastructure. And so it should be no surprise, as news has started to, I guess, build and make its way out that the future of Toowoomba Airport is now at risk. There's been a strong coming together of all of the aviation businesses at that location to form the Toowoomba City Community Airport Organisation. This is a fabulous initiative, a fantastic initiative of the local businesses to come together and unite around this cause, not to simply oppose a council proposal, but rather to focus on generating not only the vital publicity, but the critical information needed so that everybody across the community understands the role that their airport plays in keeping their region successful, prosperous, and of course, making the amenity of living in Toowoomba what it is. So a great coming together of local businesses to mount this challenge, which now sits in front of them. And so what is the challenge? Well, the challenge as it sits today is that the council in 2024 has decided, after 50, 60 years of operation, that the airport now is a financial concern, and that they have put forward the statements that they believe that the airport is operating at a significant loss, and as a consequence of that loss, that the airport is going to require, I guess, one of a multitude of outcomes. And to speak to that, what I've done today is I've got a copy of the council report, and I'd like to just walk through that report with everybody. And then what I'm going to do is talk about the council meeting that took place today. So let's just bring up the report on screen as I speak to this particular issue. And here it is. This is a report that's been prepared by the Toowoomba Regional Council, and it has been put before the council today as of May 28th of May 2024. The report was authored by Anne-Marie Johnston, who's the General Manager of Finance and Business Strategy for the Council, and Anne-Marie is a CPA accountant. And what she has done is she's prepared a report that tackles the question of what the airport is costing the community and what the council will need to do moving forward. Now, before we dive into this document, I think what's very important to understand is some key information. The first thing is this report was put together in exclusion from the local aviation community. There was absolutely no consultation with local aviation businesses. And from the information we've been provided, none of the aviation businesses, stakeholders, leaseholders, or anyone on the airport site were questioned in relation to any of the key information. So this was done in isolation from the actual aviation stakeholders. And quite interestingly, the General Manager admits in this report that she worked closely with the Wellcamp Airport in preparing this report. And I think that's going to become key in this discussion. But we start with the purpose of the report, which they state is that the council, to provide the council with the results of an internal financial review regarding the aerodrome, and to put forward 5 options for council to consider regarding the future of this aerodrome. The report is also tabled with some confidential attachments which have not been made public, and AOPA Australia will be lodging some freedom of information requests to try and obtain those reports, because we do believe that they're critical. But again, the important thing for everyone across the aviation industry to note is that the part of these confidential reports were generated by external consultants, and yet again, this is a common repeating theme that we have, is that we have quote unquote aviation consultants floating around this industry that are making a living leeching on councils by producing all manner of spurious and dubious reporting that helps build a case that their services are required to deeply analyse how the airport could possibly be retained or have a future. And I've spoken to this issue before. I think these consultants have done an enormous amount of damage to the general aviation industry over the last 20 years as they've really taken a hold. It seems to be a burgeoning sector of the aviation economy that people are diving into to make a quick buck. But enough be said that external consultants got involved. They prepared some reporting, and then from there, of course, the situation is unfolded. The council goes on to note that given the cost of the airport to council, it's appropriate for council to review the ongoing commitment to operations at the aerodrome. Now, some time ago, the council stopped renewing leases at the airport in preparation of this report. So it was pretty clear to the aviation community that there was something afoot, and it was likely to end up being that the leases were being paused, renewals were being paused until council could impose a new fee and service charging matrix. The GM goes on to say the privately owned and operated Wellcamp Airport is located 13.5 kilometres from the aerodrome, 17.5 kilometres from the CBD, and is able to offer similar services to those offered by the Toowoomba City Aerodrome. I think I've just had my little one get out of bed. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm going to have to pause the presentation because I've had the little one just climb up out of bed here. Hello, Oliver. 2 seconds. I will be back. The joys of working from home. Okay, so the General Manager goes on in this report, quite interestingly, to, from the outset, position this entire report with the premised argument that the region now has two effectively competing aerodromes, and really pushes the argument that the Wellcamp Aerodrome is close and it's well suited. Well, this is actually a false statement. And again, I've covered it off in the précis to this, that the Wellcamp Aerodrome is really not equipped to handle the general aviation business community and private aviation makeup of Toowoomba. And so the very opening premise of this report is quite flawed. It then goes on to talk about that there are activities associated with the aerodrome that provide a flow-on indirect economic employment benefit for the region. Doesn't really detail much of what these are or what they're made up of, and then dives into the 5 options that are currently available for council. The first option is to continue to operate the aerodrome on the same basis that council has done previously. The second option is to continue to operate the aerodrome with a review to be undertaken to ensure leases, fees and charges are commercially competitive and in line with similar aerodromes, with a further detailed financial review to ensure a cost recovery is being undertaken. The third option is to implement full cost pricing. The fourth option is to sell the aerodrome as an operating aerodrome. And the fifth option is to decide to close the aerodrome at a future date with the land to be sold and or considered for other uses. Now, obviously, this is a pretty staggering outcome to get to after 50, 60 years of operation as a successful aerodrome, being recognised as a strong hub of general aviation on the eastern seaboard of Australia. to have these 5 options put before the council. And I think a cursory review of it at a high level, you can see that the general manager has maybe formed an idea in her mind, which is if we sell off the airport, or we can arrive at an outcome which will enable us to sell off the airport, then what we'll end up with is we'll end up with an outcome that council can pocket some quick cash. We'll push the general aviation operations across to Wellcamp, where they'll have to negotiate with a privatised airport operator, not only to spend money to build facilities, but also to then have to deal with the ongoing cost fees and challenges at that site. So pretty devastating outcome, to say the least. Now, the recommendation that was put before the council today was, first of all, that this report be tabled formally to council and accepted, but also for the council to pass a motion as to what it would like to do. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole report with everyone here today, but I do want to just quickly dive down to what the council have presented as the financials for the airport. Now, the Toowoomba City Community Airport Group put together a Freedom of Information request and requested from council the accounting for the airport to try and see and understand how the Toowoomba Council is claiming that this airport is operating at a significant loss. And the Freedom of Information request came back with absolutely no reporting as to that FOI request, other than to say it was part of general accounting. Now, this report has been tabled, and I think it's fair to say that this accounting is probably not a standard accounting framework, and whilst it's probably been summarised from council's general accounts, it really doesn't reflect a detailed profit and loss of the airport in order to understand where the significant costs are, what they're comprised of, how they're incurring costs on the airfield, what rationale they're using to allocate costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, again, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association will be working closely with the Community Airports Group, but we'll be seeking to try and get more detailed accounting to try and understand where they're spending the money. Having said all of that, even a basic review of these numbers that they've put forward show that a significant amount of the costs that the council are claiming that are driving the airport into losses are comprised of land tax being allocated. So there's over $1 million of land tax being paid on the site. And we're also seeing a big chunk of depreciation and other corporate overheads. So roughly $1.5 million between land tax, the council's corporate overhead and depreciation there on the books. Again, we won't know what the detail is until we're given access to that accounting, and we certainly hope that the council cooperate and get that information to us. Now, today the council met. The Toowoomba Council convened a ordinary meeting, and the councillors debated this report, and I tuned in live from Sydney to watch it, and I was quite pleased to see that the councillors were actively discussing this issue, and that a number of the councillors were putting up sensible conversation and, in some cases, objection to the way in which this report has been constructed. The outcome of that debate, and you can actually jump online to the Toowoomba City Council website. You can watch their meetings via live stream. I, again, encourage aviators throughout Queensland and the rest of the country, if you're concerned as to the future of what's happening with airports, get involved, watch the council meetings and see for yourself how these discussions are unfolding and how these debates are being had. But the outcome of that meeting today was that a motion was put forward and accepted unanimously that a 2-year review of the costs of the airport, a 2-year review of the services and benefits of the airport to the community be undertaken, and in 2026 this information be tabled to council for a decision as to the future of this aerodrome. So we have a 2-year countdown timer that has effectively started from today as to what the final decision for the council will be regarding this airport. And so this is now the new challenge for general aviation as we move forward. Now, obviously, there are a multitude of ways that you can fight these particular issues as an industry. And what's clear in this particular instance is there appears to be some strong allies within the councillors at Toowoomba, in the Toowoomba region. and there now needs to be an effort to unequivocally demonstrate what the value of this airport is to the local community and how important the airport is not only for aviation but for community groups and other users. And so AOPA Australia will be working with the Community Airports Association. There's a great deal of work that has to go on, not only in documenting all of the stories of aviation as to why it's important to our industry, but bringing all of those other community groups in that utilise the airport for fundraising activities, events, and so on and so forth, to make sure that they're part of that ecosystem of advocacy and support moving forward. Ultimately, I wish to be thoroughly clear on this issue. Toowoomba Airport is at risk of being closed. It is clear that the General Manager, who is a CPA, she has a very clear business background. I have no doubt in my mind that she's identified she's sitting on several tens of millions of dollars worth of land, and that there is a deal to be done here to get rid of the pesky general aviation industry and put that money into the coffers of council and let us deal with a privatised operator. As I've said at the outset, that is not a solution that's going to work. That will devastate aviation. It will destroy the aviation businesses. It will ruin apprenticeships. It will ruin training. It will erode critical technical skills and opportunities for the region of Toowoomba faster than you can blink. So that we can't allow that to happen. It's going to have to require a whole of industry effort to make sure that this is a successful outcome. So how do you get involved? Well, the first thing I would encourage everybody to do, you have Facebook. Facebook and social media is an incredibly powerful tool in connecting users and interested parties and stakeholders across the industry. Jump online, become a follower of the Toowoomba City Community Airport page. Keep up to date with all of the news and activities. They're doing a fantastic job of making certain that everything that's happening at the airfield site is being documented and made available for people to understand exactly what is going on. There are petitions that are currently underway. We'll be linking these to the AOPA Australia Facebook page, and I'd recommend that we get as many people involved in these processes as we possibly can. You can also play a role yourself by simply writing to your local member and making it clear that you do not want the Toowoomba Airport lost to property development greed or council's desire to turn the land into cash. Keep in perspective, these are community assets. These are owned by the ratepayers of the region. They are a valuable community and social asset. To watch a council simply sell them off is hardly an acceptable means of running a council. Council may need to look at its budgets and start trimming itself accordingly. There must be other programs that are superfluous that we can work with council to identify, rather than selling off the baby and the bathwater. So, Toowoomba Airport, Queensland, it now joins a long list of Australian airports around the country that are at risk through local councils who either don't really want to be running airports or don't necessarily understand aviation well enough. There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done to overcome this challenge. We'll continue to do our work behind the scenes with friendly politicians and those that understand and care about what's happening. I have already reached out to representatives in Queensland, and I'll be working with the Community Airports Group to try and connect those senators and MPs to get them down on site to talk about this issue and to express a desire not to see the people of Queensland lose this valuable asset. If we as the stakeholder group in aviation, every pilot, aircraft owner, aviation business can get behind this effort by writing a letter as well, expressing your support, making sure that you're kept up to date and aware of exactly what's going on, we will stand half a chance at turning the tide on this particular one. So a sad outcome. I was particularly unimpressed today to see the way in which council were regarding the airport as just a business unit. It's not. Just like parks, garden and recreation, there are a lot of functions for council to provide. Let's keep in mind, what are councils there to do? We have local councils in this country to facilitate community infrastructure, to facilitate the things we need to make our communities vibrant, accessible, and successful locations that we wish to base ourselves, bring up our families, own homes, establish businesses. Airports are an invaluable component of making any local community a success. And so it's sad to see that the council doesn't immediately understand that challenge. There's a bit of work we need to do. I'll be reaching out to councillors and the general manager to have these conversations and try and support that process. And fingers crossed we can make some ground. So there's an update. I thank you all for joining me. I do apologise. My little one's screaming inside that bedroom to get out, and I have to he'll have to make a guest appearance at some point in time. But I do appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody, and hopefully we'll be joined in the coming weeks by Anna Maria and Louise and the rest of the community airport team up in Toowoomba. We'd love to have them come and tell their story directly, understand from them the challenge that they are experiencing as businesses who've been established there for decades. So thank you so much, guys. Now, I say this at the end of every single video. If you like the work that AOPA Australia does to ensure that the community of aviation here in Australia remains up to date and aware of all of these issues, and you appreciate us working hard behind the scenes to bring the information forward, that counts. And you also appreciate the fact that you have an advocate that says it straight, shoots it like an arrow, and ensures that those that hold power are held to account, then I really do encourage each and every one of you to consider becoming a member of AOPA Australia. We are that one invaluable organisation ourselves that without, we will not have a general aviation industry. We're there fighting every day of the week, whether it's front and centre in front of a camera or whether it's behind the scenes quietly to effect change. We are focused on delivering that change for you across the industry, no questions asked. You will always know that you have an advocate and an organisation that backs you 100% with AOPA Australia. We're not confused as to who we represent and what our purpose and mission is. And I hope that you'll join us and be part of that process. As I say, it helps put the fuel in the tanks. It gets us to our destination and enables the fight to continue. It's just $159 to join AOPA. Jump online, www.aopa.com.au/membership. Or if you're a business and you'd like to get involved in helping sponsor these videos and have your product or your business mentioned at the start and at the conclusion of these videos, reach out. Let's have a conversation. This is a worthwhile organisation to support. I've been involved in this now for 9 years. I've given almost a decade of my working life to representing all of you across the industry. It's been a wonderful privilege and an honour, and I hope that we can be doing it for years to come successfully with great outcomes. So thank you so much, guys, and I look forward to speaking to you all again very soon.